In lesson 7.2, we're going to be exploring fraction multiplication situations. Before we begin, would you please get out a whiteboard marker, or a sheet of paper? We're going to begin by taking a fraction and decomposing it into unit fractions. Let me remind you what that looks like. So 4/5, I'm going to break that down into unit fractions. 1/5, that would be the unit fraction. So if I were going to break this down into unit fractions, it would be 1/5 plus 1/5 plus 1/5 plus 1/5. And that equals my 4/5. Would you please decompose 5/6 and 6/8 into unit fractions? So if you were doing it down to the unit fraction, it would be the smallest fraction, and 1 would be the numerator. Go ahead and pause your video and complete 5/6 and 6/8. If we break down 5/6 into unit fractions, it would be 1/6 plus 1/6 plus 1/6 plus 1/6 plus 1/6 equals 5/6. And for 6/8, 1/8. All right. Let's try when we have mixed numbers. Let me do one for you. I could take 2.5, and this time you do not need to break it down into unit fractions. You just need to decompose it or break it down into smaller parts. So I could say 2 plus 1/2, or for that one I could say 2/2, which is the same thing as 1 whole, plus 1 whole plus 1/2. That would equal 2 and 1/2. This fraction is equal to 1 plus 1 whole plus 1/2. Would you please decompose 3 and 7/12 and 3 and 62/100? Pause your video and complete it on your whiteboard or a sheet of paper. 3 and 7/12, I could break that down into 2 plus 1 plus 6/12 plus 1/12. There are endless ways that you could break this down. Maybe I could say 3 plus 5/12 plus 2/12 equals 3 and 7/12. Many different ways to decompose these fractions. 3 and 62/100. I could take 100/100, which equals 1 whole, plus 2 plus 60/100 plus 2/100. All right, let's continue with the lesson for today. Open your journal to page 232. Page 232. It says baking muffins at the top. Suma and her sister Pooja are baking 12 blueberry wheat muffins for breakfast. The recipe lists the following ingredients: 1 cup white flour, 1/2 cup whole wheat flour, 2 teaspoons baking powder, 3/4 cup blueberries, 1/4 teaspoon salt, 1 egg, 1/2 a cup skim milk, 2/3 cup honey, 1/4 cup cooking oil, and 3/8 teaspoons cinnamon. Solve the number stories. In the space below each problem, use pictures or equations to show what you did to find the answers. Your answers. Number 1, the sisters want to triple the recipe. That means 3 times. So maybe they're having company over and want 36 blueberry wheat muffins. How many teaspoons of baking powder do they need now? So we're going to go ahead and look at what they need for 1 recipe of baking powder. 2 teaspoons times 3 recipes, that means tripling the recipes, equals 6 teaspoons. So they will add 6 teaspoons of baking powder. Now, what do they need for salt? So they need 1/4 of a teaspoon of salt. So in 3 recipes, they would need 1/4 plus 1/4 plus 1/4. And we know we keep the denominator the same, so that's 4th. And then we go ahead and add our numerator. 1 plus 1 plus 1 is 3/4. The girls will need 3/4 of a teaspoon. C, how many whole cups of whole wheat flour do they need now? Well, they need a 1/2 cup. So if I go ahead and go back up to what they need for whole wheat flour, they're going to need a 1/2 cup plus a 1/2 cup plus a 1/2 cup. If I combine a 1/2 cup and a 1/2 cup, that is 1 whole, and then a 1/2 cup more. So 1 1/2 cups. D, between what 2 whole numbers does your answer to problem 1C lie? Remember, our answer to 1C was 1 1/2. So it comes between the whole numbers 1 and 2. It's more than 1 cup, but less than 2 cups. Let's continue on page 233. Same recipe, different problem. Number 2, Suma and Pooja decided to make 48 muffins instead of 12. How many cups of blueberries did they use? Well, the first thing that I need to figure out is if a recipe makes 12 blueberry wheat muffins, how many recipes would I need to make 48? Well, 12, that's 1 recipe, plus 12 is 24, plus another 12 would be 36, plus another 12 would give me 48. So 1 recipe, 2 recipes, 3 recipes, 4 recipes. So just know that in order to get 48 muffins, they will have to quadruple or take 4 times the recipe. How many cups of blueberries did they use? Well, let's go up to blueberries. 3/4 of a cup. Well, this time I'm going to draw a picture. Here would be 1 recipe. That's 3/4 of a cup. Notice I used 3 out of 4 equal parts of that cup. Here's 1/4, 2/4, another 3/4. That's my second recipe. My third recipe would be 1/4, 2/4, and 3/4. And 1 more recipe. Remember, we have to make it 4 times to get 48 muffins. 1/4, 2/4, 3/4. I'm getting 3/4 from up here. So each number represents 3/4. Let's add that all together. This is 1 cup. This is 2 cups. This is 3 cups. So the girls will need 3 cups. How many teaspoons of cinnamon did they use? Well, let's look up cinnamon. Remember, they have to make 4 recipes. So I'm going to add this together 4 times. So 3/8 plus 3/8 plus 3/8 plus 3/8. If I add those together, this would be 6/8 and 6/8. Okay, 6/8 and 6/8 gives me 12/8. We call that an improper fraction when the top number is larger than the bottom. But the answer would be 12/8. But this is how I convert it into a mixed number. How many 8s are there in 12? 1 and 4/8. So another way to say 12/8 is 1 and 4/8 teaspoons, or we would call that 1 1/2. Letter C, how many cups of honey did they use? Here's honey. Remember, again, we're making 4 times the recipe. So I would go ahead and add 2/3. Second recipe uses 2/3. Third recipe, fourth recipe. Remember, thirds does not change. I just add together my numerators. 2, 4, 6, 8. 8/3, but we would convert that to a mixed number. How many 3s are in 8? Well, there are 2. 3 times 2 is 6. Subtract. The remainder is written on the top of the fraction, the numerator, and our divisor is written on the bottom, the denominator. So 8/3 is the same as 2 2/3 cup. Between what two whole numbers does your answer to problem 2C lie? Well, it's more than 2, but less than 3. So 2 2/3 falls between 2 and 3. If you want to try this, number 3 on your own, you are welcome to. That is the last of this part of the lesson, though.